Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Welcome to another episode of Perception Paradox, where we dive deep into the stories that challenge the status quo and reshape our perspectives. Today, we're excited to have Carlos Charles with us, a groundbreaker in sustainable technology and a student entrepreneur who is not just studying mechanical engineering, but also is reshaping the future of the batteries. And so, Carlos is co founder of Flint, and his journey began really early. And I'm really glad to have him on this podcast because when we met a few weeks back in the Brussels in the environmental forum, I was just like, oh my God, I can see that entrepreneurial spark. And his story is super inspiring, and the things he's building is just, I don't know, world changing. So without saying no more, I just want to welcome Carlo to Perception Paradox. Welcome.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for finding time. We've just had a brief conversation, but you are super busy. So, what you've been up to lately?
So lately, which is like practically last week, I was in Korea developing like a public policy document for the ASEAN, US, and ROK countries, and basically just seeing how these three countries can work together in terms of peace, prosperity, and freedom. So I tried to write about environment and technology and the entrepreneurship scene and why we should invest more into that landscape so that more people like me, young people like me, can like come up with the crazy ideas and just change the world. So that is what I was really focused about. And I'm really happy because it is my first time trying to do something in that area with the public policy area. And luckily, two of my paragraphs came to the final draft. So it's quite cool. It's a nice
Oh,
feeling, you know.
wow.
Yes.
That's impressive. Was it difficult to write those paragraphs? How was the process?
Yeah, it is a very, how do I say this? It's a very new kind of writing style for me. I learned a lot. I just tried to be a big sponge in the entire conference, trying to like learn from all the professors that came. And we also talked to like a lot of country ambassadors and trying to learn the problems of like what is going on right now. So you can just like see me trying to take a break from technology at this point and just trying to like diverge myself
Hmm.
into indulge myself into like other fields so that I can like learn more about what I'm doing in Flint from different perspectives, like from the perspective of the government, for example, or from the consumer, or from a youth, or from the entire world. I just try to like step out at times and see what difference that can make, and I think it's just making a pretty good difference.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And you already mentioned Flint, so maybe you can give a brief intro. What is Flint, and how did you come up with an idea of
Uh-huh.
such kind of batteries?
Flint is a deep tech climate startup. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is because nowadays, when we try to make startups, that's usually the last option that people choose for because it's just so hard. It's just like mind wrecking, you know? Because, like, if you choose a startup that's software based, for example, you just need like a couple laptops to build your idea and just like move it forward. But when it comes to like
Mm.
deep tech climate startups, you need like tons of machineries and equipments to even check if what you're doing is possible. And what we tried to do is we tried to build a battery technology that's built without lithium, nickel, and cobalt. That was like our key value since day one.
Hmm.
We want to build a new battery technology that is so sustainable and that fits what the world is moving towards nowadays. Because if you look at the stats, this is hard numbers, okay? By 2030, our demand
Yeah.
for batteries are just going to rise by 5 times than what it is today. And that's because of all the EVs and all the
Hmm.
green energy adaptions and everything. Like we all know what's going on right now, but what we do not know is that the materials to make this happen by 2030 doesn't even exist yet. We are lacking almost more than
Hmm.
50% of the materials to hit the 2030 goal, and how exactly are we building the future of green energy with materials that will one day not exist. So it's like it's a very big irony that a lot of people are trying to challenge and solve, and in that field, we are trying to do something completely different because we are avoiding lithium, nickel, and cobalt at all. We're not even having them near our battery technology. We're using something completely different. We're working with things like zinc and manganese, and these are so abundant. You can literally
Okay.
find them in the food you eat and even in our bodies. So that's how safe the materials we're working with. And due to that, the batteries are actually 10 times cheaper to make compared to lithium batteries right now. The batteries are so safe you can cut the battery while it's in operation. It still continues working. This is mind
Really?
in terms of
No
safety.
way. How about the fire? Because it's paper battery.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. We call ourselves paper batteries, but we're using a cellulose paper kind of material, and cellulose paper is actually fire resistant. So that just adds an extra layer of protection to our battery chemistry because we are not so easy to get overheated or even like explosions and all those things. So, fun fact, when we tested our battery and tried to cut it during operation, it still continued working. It didn't explode
No
like what you
way.
would expect a normal battery would do. It still continued to work. And I think the best thing I would say about it is that it's compostable at the end of its life cycle, which means like all you have to do at the end of its life cycle is throw the battery in some soil or something, and then under natural conditions it will go back to nature by itself. But that doesn't mean we're telling
Oh,
people to
wow.
just throw batteries wherever they go. What it means is that with our batteries, at the end of its life cycle, recycling it will be so much cheaper and easier compared to what today batteries cost. And that's a big problem because today's batteries, only 10%, less than 10% of them are being recycled. And everything else just goes to a landfill, polluting someone's health or someone's home.
Yeah.
So as the world gets more greener in that sense, the batteries we're using today are not green at all. And that's the problem we're trying to solve at Flint. It's a very big problem, and not many people are talking
Mm.
about it or addressing it.
That's a very big problem. I have so many questions from so many different directions. Going back a bit into the product, how long did it take you to develop your battery formula? Of course, it's in process. You're always testing and improving it. But
Hmm.
how did that come into place? Did you have some source of inspiration? Did you find the perfect co-founder somewhere, I don't know, in the woods or anywhere? Because there are
Yes.
two problems. It's difficult right now to find sometimes these new innovative approaches. It's very hard. And another thing, finding a co-founder for a startup, it's a huge challenge. How did you
Mhm.
manage to do that both?
So when we built our battery technology, we had three key values like built into our minds. Like that's like what we. It's like our Bible. We wanted to follow three key values. The first one is that we want to avoid toxic materials. If you look at the periodic table, for example, like let's go back to chemistry class 101. The elements on the leftmost side of the periodic table, which is called group 1 and 2, they're the ones being used mostly for the batteries today. And that's because they are very powerful. And due to that, they're also very toxic. So when we started building our technology, we wanted to avoid that at all cost. And we wanted to work with other kind of materials that can give us other options. So we tried a ton of permutations and combinations. So that took us around like almost 3 years to make it happen. And this our work was actually inspired by a overlooked research paper. And I just like I was just I think I
Mm.
was like a year one student back then, and I was just looking through Google and just exploring things, when I'm free. And I found this out, and I was like, "Whoa, this has so much potential!" Like in the research paper that we found, and I just wanted to like develop it and see how it can help progress that forward, and that kind of led me to where I am today, because one thing led to another, and I just like started working on it myself and putting my own money, my own resources, time, energy, and we have something completely new, and it's all inspired by that research paper. And sorry, let me go back to the second
Wow.
value. Yes, the second value that we wanted to focus is we want our
Yeah.
batteries to follow the same manufacturing process of lithium batteries. And the reason is because we know that there are so many good battery technologies out there right now. I'm not gonna like disagree with that fact because like for example, hydrogen batteries, they're so good, because the only byproduct of hydrogen batteries are water. And just imagine how crazy that is. And in terms of efficiency, they're pretty good at this stage already. But the problem with that is if you want a hydrogen battery to be like inside a car, for example, or inside your phone or laptop, you have to change the entire way the product is designed to just hold those batteries and use those batteries. So that would require the
Mm.
entire world to change what it's currently doing and force itself to like be something else into adopting a new battery technology. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to like follow the same way a lithium battery is made, the same manufacturing process, so that we could go to literally any space where lithium batteries are today. And that means our paper batteries could be in like your laptops or your phones or even the electric cars that are out there right now. And to make the production line, it makes things so much cheaper as well because all we have to do is use existing technologies that's out there already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to like manufacture
Hmm.
these batteries. And that's like a huge advantage that we have compared to other battery technologies. Because if you were to build like a pilot production line for a new battery technology, it would cost millions of dollars. Meanwhile, for us, it's just around like a couple
Yeah.
$100,000, and that's because of how much we put thought into it since day one from what we're trying to build. And the third value that we tried to follow is we wanted our battery to be built with materials that are abundant because we also did the math for it and we found out like to build the lithium batteries that we have today, it is around 0.00007% of the earth's crust. That's like 0.00007%. And that number will only start
Okay.
getting lower the more we depend on it, and prices are just going to get higher. In the last 1 year, battery prices increased by almost twice, and that's just the beginning. Like imagine next 5 or 10 years. So we're when we
Hmm.
did the math for our materials, it's around 0.02% of the earth's crust, and that shows you like we are much better by like almost like few tenfolds and everything in terms of comparison.
Hmm.
So these are the three key values that we want to follow since day one, and I think it is embedded into our souls at this point. And
Your DNA.
yes, DNA, yeah, that's the right word. And it took us a lot of time to reach this place to show that it actually works. Something like this even is possible. 2 years ago, this battery isn't even possible. It's like a one-time use battery. But now this battery is rechargeable and it's proven. So what we're doing right now is to commercialize this battery and bring it to the mass scale by doing application testings and seeing how we can scale up in the future as well. So that's a lot of work because doing something in the lab is the easiest thing, I would say, and making that into a production line, you have to do a million steps to make that happen, and that's extremely hard because making something for once is easy, but making that one thing a million other times with the same quality and efficiency, that's
Hmm.
difficult. And me being a student and knowing nothing about the manufacturing
Yeah.
field, just learning everything along the way, I will take some time to make that happen, but I can tell you I will make it happen. Yes.
Somehow I have no doubt from the moment I met you and you shared with me a bit of a story. But so it took you 2 years right now to get to the battery. Or was it a longer process?
It's a longer process.
So how about how many years are we talking from the first moment you found that research paper?
It's been 3 years since I found a research paper, but that research
Okay.
paper, I have no idea how many years that took to be made also.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And for now, what you have already, what is the life cycle of your battery?
So the comparison of efficiency in batteries can be driven by I think three key values, the three industry standards. The first is volumetric density. So no, sorry, four standards. My bad. The first is areal density. So I have a
Okay.
small paper here. Let me. So imagine this is like a battery cell. Okay,
So
just
yeah.
like one cell of a battery. If you were to calculate the area of the battery side times side to a lithium battery, we are 115% compared to a lithium battery. That means we exceeded the standards already. Now, if you make this into a volumetric capacity, let's say you roll this paper into a cylinder or something, how much can this battery produce? We can
Mm-hmm.
produce around 70% of what lithium batteries can produce in terms of energy, volumetric energy density. But when you look at gravimetric energy density, that's where things get very interesting because the entire world talks about gravimetric densities, and gravimetric is basically kilowatt hour per kilogram. And lithium batteries range upon 200 to 300 kilowatt hours. We are around 230. So we are inside the range already. We're
Oh
just trying
wow.
to like improve the battery stability and its power output at this point so that we can hit even higher uh, applications like EV and all those things. But for now, we already have a ton of applications that we can already work with, and we are already lining up to work with those people.
That's pretty cool. That's very impressive. And where do you have your lab? Because you're right now tuning in from Singapore. That's where you are based right now, right?
Yeah. Uh, I am actually in Singapore. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own space over here. We have like around three labs. We share a couple labs with a few institutions, but we have our main lab in this really nice place, and it's like my most favorite place to be in.
Really? Oh my God, too bad that I left Singapore too early. I was there last spring,
Oh,
attending Antlers program, and I'm like, ah, we missed each other. But I'll be back to Singapore. It's okay. I'll visit the
yes.
lab.
I can definitely
Oh
bring
my
you
God.
there.
That would be so interesting. So, okay, so you're a co-founder in the team. So, how big is the team right now, and how did you find your co-founder? Because if I recall it right, you're not doing that alone.
Oh yeah, we have a team of around 4 to 5 people, but my co-founder, the founders of Flint are only two people, me and another person
Mm-hmm.
named Jeremy. So how we started off is a very funny story. It's a completely different story. Like it didn't even start with batteries.
Okay.
Um,
I like funny stories. Please continue.
yeah, so I'm trying to make the story short. So I was actually born and raised in Philippines my entire life, and
Uh huh.
I built a lot of tech projects when I was young because I was like very driven by the climate change thing, the story behind it. Because Philippines is
Mm-hmm.
very prone to typhoons and floods and all those things, and the more we got affected over the years, the more severe things got. I just like got more curious into why things like these are happening, and I found out it's about climate change. So from a 15-year-old boy, just imagine him like googling what is climate change and everything. And I was just like so inspired to like do something about it. So I just like started building tech projects. So I built like 2 to 3 projects. A few of them got recognized by Google, the U.S. Embassy, Nat Geo, and like, a lot of institutions, even the Department of Science and Technology and all. But one of them got funded to like build several models. So when I had to build the fourth model of that, that's when I got enlisted into the army of Singapore because every Singaporean man has to serve the army. And I didn't know or have any friends in Singapore at that point, and I was just looking for someone to help me with this project with 3D printing. So I just like Googled like anyone to help me with 3D printing, and that's how I met my co-founder. So
Okay.
we spent like almost 1 year working on that Google project, like building it from scratch. And after the end of that project, I was just like, you know what, maybe we should do something like bigger together because we just our chemistry just clicked very well, and we were just like really good working together and all. Yeah, so that's how it started off. And when we started off, we wanted to build consumer technologies. We wanted to build like products, and we started off with a crazy idea. We wanted to like build a modern pager for the 21st century because I get distracted by my
What?
phone a lot. Yes, and I thought maybe having a pager can like just keep
Yeah.
me focused and keep my life minimal and all those things. So we started with that, and we ended up like with where we are today. Yes, and I think the biggest inspiration was
Wow,
like
what a journey.
in
So
all
wait,
yeah in all the projects that I worked with batteries a lot. I worked with lead acid batteries, lithium polymer batteries, lithium ion
uh-huh.
batteries, but I never thought about what happened to those batteries after those projects. Then when I started considering, I was like,
Yeah.
this is interesting. Why don't I start off? So when I started off, I didn't think much about it. I just thought it's a pretty interesting problem to solve. I went into it. But the more deeper I got into it, I was like, damn, like I didn't know there was this much depth into the problem that I'm solving, and I'm grateful I did. I think I'm lucky that I stumbled upon it.
If I think you're just really good at spotting the problems and opportunities at the end of the day. That brings
Maybe.
me to another question. Let's go back a bit to your childhood. You were 14, 15 years old, a schoolboy who is thinking, oh my God, why the climate is changing right now when some parts of the world where they were not even considering that. Where
Hmm.
do you think all that curiosity, knowledge, and kind of understanding about the global problems is coming from?
Um, I don't really know. I'm a very nature guy. I love staring at things. Like if it's raining outside, I could just like go outside and just stare into nothing, like for
Yeah.
the entire day. I love like stargazing also, and the more that these natural disasters happened in Philippines, I saw like people's life just taken away in a single night, or their houses get broken and all those things. So it kind of like messed up with my mind from a young age, I would say, and it just made me question
Hmm.
things a lot, and it made me so focused on doing something. And I think that's how I found my passion. Because when I built my first project, that's when I realized that I really liked the process of thinking about a problem, thinking what's the best solution, building the solution, and testing the solution, and all those stuff. So I really liked it. So I just like went on that journey even further, further, further. Yeah. So if you were to go and see my room as a kid, my room in my house in Philippines,
Yeah.
it's like there's like transistors everywhere. There's like circuits, wires, and everything. Like it just feels so nice to go inside my room. It's like microchips, all
Seriously?
this stuff. Yeah, and whenever like I have free
What?
time, my friends would like go to the mall, shopping, watching movies, playing games, and all those things. But I would just want to go back to my room and just continue like programming and doing stuff. And I miss my room, to be honest. My room was like full of things. Like there was like drones or
Really?
like whatever I need is like just there, like resistors, transistors, soldering iron station. I had like a mini lab in my own room back then. Yeah. So if you like walked into my room
When,
like in the night when it's dark, you could like get
yeah?
stabbed by something if you didn't see properly. Yeah. So
Oh
it
my
was.
God.
I
So
think I
your,
should
your
thank
room was a
my
danger
parents for
lab.
that. Yeah. I should thank my parents for that
Yeah.
because like they supported what I liked from a young age, and they didn't question it a
Hmm.
lot. Like imagine like a 16-year-old kid asking a big transistor for his birthday gift. This transistor is like very hard to find nowadays because they stopped producing it already, and they used to build jam radios out of it, basically radios that don't need batteries to be powered. It uses the radio frequency waves to power the speaker and everything. And I was like, this is like free energy, because it's crazy. And they I thought
Yeah.
I had a theory that maybe they stopped producing this because it's basically free electricity that can power radios and stuff. So I wanted to like get my hands on one of them. So I asked
Okay.
my parents like I want this for my birthday gift one day. So I had to like find it in the dark corners of the internet, and so luckily some person was selling it, and I got it for my gift. It was around like
Seriously?
$200, and I felt so guilty because
Oh,
$300 was like big money for me and Philippines, and I never asked anything that expensive back then. So yeah, my parents were quite supportive.
Wow, so basically you got that. So what's the conclusion? Do you think that they don't exist anymore because we produce the free
Yeah,
energy?
I
What did you do
100%.
with that?
I just uh,
Oh, wow.
so I tried to rebuild that radio and try to do something with it. So instead of powering a radio, I wanted to power like a LED light and see if I can multiply that, and I can be powering a bigger light. So maybe you'll find like when there's no electricity in some rural place on the earth, I can bring that circuit that I
Mhm.
built and power a small LED light to make life better for someone. So it was just a small project that I built, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. I really liked doing those things.
When was the first time you touched computer or some technology and started coding?
Oh, that's another funny story because computer education was like embedded into our academic and curriculum like since a very young age. So when I was like, we call it Kinder One, Kinder Two. I don't know how young that is. That's
Okay.
around like 5 or 6 years old. I think so, 5 or 6. So we had computer class, and one day the teacher called my mom because she said that I asked her what was the next class. Then she said computer class, and I started crying because I didn't like the teacher. So it started with that, and then the teacher just told my mom
Okay.
like maybe you should buy a computer at home so he gets more used to it. And then my dad and my mom bought a computer, just put it in my house. I just started playing around a lot with it and just learning everything that I can. And there was even like a point, I think I was like 6 years old. I think around there, like everyone was on Facebook. And I wanted to get on Facebook also. And I didn't know how to sign up for Facebook. Then I cried. I was like asking my mom to help me. My mom also didn't know how to make a Facebook account. Then I just like spent more time exploring, like, and I figured it out myself. Then my mom still says this to her friends, like I was crying. Then like after 1 hour, I just no, not 1 hour. After like 3 hours, I was just like smiling and laughing and coming down the stairs, saying, "Mom, I figured it out. Like I built a Facebook account." So it started with that.
Funny, actually.
Yeah.
What did you do with Facebook when you were 6 years old?
Oh, I just wanted to add my friends on Facebook
Understand.
and chat my friends on Facebook. Like
I love it.
I literally see my classmates in school every day, but I still wanted to get on that hype because everyone was talking about it.
It makes sense. In my generation, we were using Merc and Skype before Facebook even existed with
Mhm.
the first computers.
Yeah,
So that's pretty funny. Okay, that's quite a fascinating childhood you had with a very curious mind. And right now you are 22 years old, right? Building a startup, but also you are a student. How is
yeah.
that going?
It's my first time building a startup, so it's a new experience and everything is new. For example, we're doing our fundraising right now. I know nothing about fundraising, and it's just like
Hmm.
I'm trying to be a sponge to learn as much as possible in every way thing. So I talk to a lot of people. I read a lot of books. I spend a lot of time learning through YouTube videos and all those things. So I never want to reach a point where I think I'm good and stuff. I don't want to reach that point. I just want to like keep learning along the journey. So I'm gonna still like be that person, that very curious mind that I was in 6 years old until the day I die or something. So being a student and like working on Flint is like two different worlds that I have to manage. On one world, it's academic. Everything is like theoretical and everything. And on the other world, it's so practical because everything, if I spend like 1 hour doing some work in my startup, it makes a big impact. And I can see that impact. But when I go to the academic world, it's just like I have to do research, like reports. I have to do a case study, and at the end of the day, like teacher grades it, and I don't even know what happens to my work. So I don't see the value behind it. I see the learning as the biggest value out of everything so far. But the learning itself can also have some problems, because let's say. What's a good example? If I want to explain an idea in the academic world, I need to write like 7 pages to explain it, you know? But in the startup world, which is basically the real world, I need to explain that idea in less than 7 seconds. If not, no one else would listen to me. So these
Yes.
two worlds are like completely different,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a struggle managing these two worlds. Once I'm in the school, I'm with my friends and classmates who think about like grades and getting the quiz for tomorrow and everything. But when I start back focusing on my startup, I'm like, oh, I need to submit some patent application tomorrow and all those things. You know, it's very different. So I'm trying my best to manage. Yes, I'm doing my best.
Okay. That's great. And you don't have much left, right?
Yeah, I have
Are you
1.5 years.
planning to continue studies or are you gonna make a 1.5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
It's doable. And what does your family say about you juggling between two worlds?
My parents, I mean, any parent would want the safest route for their child. So in that sense, my parents want me to focus on my education because they've seen quite a number of people get into this entrepreneurship journey and just like not end pretty well. So they want me to focus on my studies, and my mom is like a professor in math, so she wants me to like at least have a master's
Okay.
degree, or I cannot be lower than a master's degree. So that's my promise to her. I will definitely do it, but I'm making my next 1.5 years in Flint as my runway. So in that runway, if I can make Flint into actually something, then I can stick with it. But if there is still room to grow for Flint in that next 1.5 years, I will definitely try to balance this and see how can we move forward. Because thinking practically, I have like a family to support, like my parents and everyone. I can't just like keep going on this spree to like do whatever I want when I'm still dependent on my parents and everything.
Mm,
It's not so nice. So this is where responsibility comes into play, and I am taking this 1.5 years very seriously and very well planned, and everything is going on track so far. So if things continue going on track, I will continue working with.
okay. That's amazing. I love your mission. 1.5 year plan and your very strong focus. And again, really grateful for you being here today and sharing your story, which I think is super inspiring, not only for what you do, but how you do it. Talking about that, how do you cope with stress and how do you cope with so many different responsibilities you have towards yourself, your employees, university board, family? It's kind of a lot of pressure. What are your strategies to cope with it?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly. That's still something I'm figuring out. But what I'm doing
Okay.
so far is I see these things as places for me to improve. And since I just changed my perspective around it, like, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger in that sense.
Hmm.
And like, the more I learn, the more valuable I become. So I understand that pretty well. And not just that, when I built Flint, I had a vision behind it. So whenever I feel lost or stressed, I just take my time to step back and just like look at the overall vision. Like, why did I start in the first place? What do I want Flint to be like in the future? I think about these things a lot, and it's very close to my heart also. And I think that's what drives me forward a lot. I've lost a lot of friends and people that I care about along the journey just because I don't have time for them.
Hmm.
But it's the balance, I would say, that makes a difference. Um, Having the people that you care understand about what I'm doing is very, very valuable, and I'm very lucky to have
Yeah,
those people in my life. Yes, it's a handful of people.
that's
It's just like
incredible.
I could just count it out of my hand. That's it's very few people, but they
Yeah.
support me a lot, and they always stand by me no matter how bad I get. I had my first burnout 2 months ago. No, I think a month ago, because it was my first time being away
Oh
from
no.
Flint for a very long time. So I went for a 1 month, a 5 week
Hmm.
program with the State Department of US, where they brought me around US to give presentations. So a lot was happening in Singapore, and I was not here, like presentations, award ceremonies, panel discussions that I was invited to, and everything. So I sent
Yeah.
all my team members for it. My team members were handling it pretty well, but I just felt like so lost because I was not in the scene, and my team was moving so fast that I felt left behind at times. So it was a
Mm.
very it was the burnout was, I wouldn't say it's nice, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
How did you cope with it? Did you reach out for some help, or you were like more like working within your own self?
Mm, I talked to a couple good people, a good-hearted people. I shared with them my problem, and they were able to like tell me something that helped me, and my team also understood that something was wrong with me. So they still continued working without me, and I think that's one of the best things that I'm proud of, for building a team that works like family
Mhm.
and still continued even without its leader. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's pretty cool that you managed to build such a strong team.
Yeah, we're still a small
Yeah.
startup. Sometimes I think to myself, like, why am I stressing out so much? Last night I ordered a
Hmm.
poster of like the Milky Way galaxy because I just want to put it in my room. Sometimes it shows me perspective. Like, look at how small Earth is, and my problems are nothing compared to what's going on in the
Yeah.
universe. Sometimes perspectives matter a lot, and sometimes I just tell myself, Flint is just a small startup, and why am I stressing out so much? There's still more to see in the future. I just need to learn from everything that's going on. Like, my dad tells me this a lot. Like, when I failed my first competition in Philippines, I was so sad. I didn't talk to anyone for like 1 week because I spent like almost 1 year building that project.
Oof.
And my dad told me, actually, I'm happy that you lost, because if you lost, you could learn more than if you actually won. And he told me what you are doing is nothing compared to what you will be doing 10 years from now on or 20 years from now on. So keep
Yeah.
treating your experiences as 1% of your life. Just treat it as you have a lot more to go
Mm.
through, and these 1% just make you stronger. So I guess me thinking in that sense helps me. I wouldn't say problem. It helps me like get through these challenges.
Hmm. Your dad is a very wise man, and good to hear that you are handling it. Yeah, because burnout is not fun, and I think it's very important that we started recognizing that and talking about that, because maybe it also makes you not to feel alone. And yeah, you mentioned a bit about the future, right? So looking ahead, where do you see this whole battery industry going in the next decade, and how do you envision, if everything goes according to your plan, Flint's role in it?
In the future, there has to be more battery chemistries that will diversify our options. And I hope Flint can be one of the biggest batteries manufacturers that can supply the demand that will be there. And I hope we can get through a lot of applications as well, like not just EVs, but also like consumer electronics, underwater applications, energy storage solutions, or even space applications like the satellites and everything. So it's a very exciting journey for us forward. But the thing is, I don't want Flint to just stop with batteries. That's the thing. My vision is much bigger than just batteries. I mean, we're
Hmm.
not stopping there, definitely. The world has more problems to be
Okay.
solved, and I want to bring our values into the other problems that are required to be solved. And I'm pretty confident once I'm done working with this paper batteries, once it's on autopilot mode, for example, I will definitely like put my hands into some other problem out there and try to solve that, some other huge problem, and make Flint into something in that space as well. I think this gives you a bigger vision of what Flint will be like in the future. We want to build the ultimate brand
Hmm.
that brings that stands at the intersection of technology and sustainability. So in the future, people like
Yeah.
you and me don't have to choose between sustainable products and non-sustainable products. Everything needs to be sustainable, and we don't even have to choose in the first place. So that's the future we want to like envision, and Flint is the one who will be working hard behind the scenes to make it happen. We will do our best. I will definitely try my best.
Wow. Thank you, Carlo, for sharing such a big vision. I literally just got back from Rwanda Unleashed conference where they gathered 1,000 talents to solve the sustainability challenges, and I can see you clearly inspiring the youth who is gathering there, the change makers, with Flint on what you do in this world. And I don't know, I'm really looking forward to follow your journey and to follow up with you in 1.5 year to see how everything is directing and where it's heading to.
Yeah.
Before we fully close this conversation for today, I have this kind of one small ritual in this podcast that I ask my guests to ask a question for the listeners. So we share something that we all can dive into as the day continues and our journey continues of perception and self discovery. So maybe you have a question for our audience that they can take from this episode and think a bit about the lives, the problems they want to solve, or the things they want to do.
Uh, okay, I can definitely try. Like, yeah. Uh,
Go
my
ahead.
friend asked me a question the other day. She asked me, "How do you define success?" It's a very general question. It's very like many people talk about it, but when
Hmm.
she asked me, I didn't know how to answer. I spent like solid 5 minutes thinking about it. We were on the car when we were talking about it, so I was just like thinking. Then I came to a conclusion that each of us are like put in this planet for a purpose. That's how I see. You know, I believe my purpose was to build Flint,
Hmm.
to solve some problems that the world needs to be solved, and I am doing my best to make that happen. So, how I define success is that I want to build a legacy, or I just want to be remembered for something when I die. That's my definition of success. Like, I want to be remembered for something. It could be a very small thing, it doesn't matter, anything.
Hmm.
So, the question that I might have for the audience or the viewers today is what is your purpose that you're put on this planet for? If you haven't found it out, that's good, because you start with a clean slate and you can explore a lot, and you have infinite possibilities to find out what your purpose is. If you already know what your purpose is, that's also great, because now you can like be laser focused on what you want to do and just like bring it forward and bring it to life. So just ask yourself, what is your purpose, and I'm pretty sure everything else will come to your place. Yeah.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, you can find the question on Spotify comments and just think about it. What's your purpose? And thank you so much, Carlo, for finding time, for taking a break and jumping on this podcast. It was really, really big honor to have you here and to hear more about your story.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for inviting.
So, thank you for being here. Thank you. And thank you everyone for your time and your support mean the world to me. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic day wherever you are.